Now we're going to shift gears and talk about a different sport. The round ball, hoops. West Virginia coming off a tough loss where they were flat against Arizona, lost by 19 points. What were your thoughts, Jonathan, on that loss to Arizona? And do you think this team's in trouble?
I don't think they're in trouble. No. Bad loss, but not really. Bad the way it ended, right? Yeah. I mean, let's just back up just a little bit. I felt like early on in the first half, West Virginia, you couldn't buy a bucket. Arizona shot the ball pretty well. They were sharp all night, actually. Mm-hmm. West Virginia, have to give them credit. They come out second half with some energy and actually fought back. I think they got that down to a 4 or 5 point lead.
They did.
In the second half. Mm-hmm. Then it just kind of spiraled out of control a little bit towards the end. So I will say, even though I'm not questioning whether the game was in doubt, to me, it seemed apparent that Arizona was in control throughout, but it wasn't a complete blowout as the final score maybe indicated. I would say a couple things can be true at the same time. Number one, I don't think that the sky's fallen. I don't think they're in trouble, but I do think there's a little bit of concern. West Virginia looked tired. And when you are a little bit of a depleted roster and you have some quick bounce backs against some pretty darn good basketball teams, that fatigue shows a little bit more. You and I kind of talked during the game a little bit. Even Javon Small just seemed a little tired. He seemed that he got to a point where it just felt like he maybe had to do a little bit more. And he's a great player. But that's what happens when you get a little fatigued and you start pressing a little bit. But I'd also just add, Couz, that Arizona's a pretty dang good basketball team. Throw that record out the window. They're now 3-0 in the Big 12. It's important to note that they came over and played a game before West Virginia. They actually went to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, I believe, was ranked. Cincinnati was almost top 15 in the country earlier on in the season. And they went to Cincinnati, and won that game, and then came to West Virginia. So they're 3-0 in the conference now, but they're 2-0 on their trip, and they beat two pretty decent basketball teams in Cincinnati and West Virginia.
Both of them were ranked at the time they beat them.
Absolutely. And so I think what happened was West Virginia's played pretty good basketball, and people knew that West Virginia had beat Arizona earlier than the year and just thought, you beat them once, you're playing good, you get them at home, should beat them again. And that's not the case. This league, it's a battle every night. And, you can't take anybody for granted. I don't care if their record was, I think it was 8-5. It doesn't matter. It's college hoops, man. I mean, you look, I know we're recording this the day after, but you look across college basketball last night. Tennessee, I believe, was the number one team in the country, went to Florida. They got manhandled, man. Does that mean Tennessee's terrible? No. Kentucky, ranked highly, went to Georgia, got beat on the road. And they were down 10, 12, 13 points in that game, got beat. Does that mean Kentucky's bad? No. I'm not putting West Virginia in that category, but I am saying that West Virginia has just as good a wins as a Tennessee, a Kentucky, and some of those schools. So I said on X this morning, and I'll probably just kind of wrap up with this on that thought, is I saw people saying, Couz, when West Virginia went to Lawrence and beat Kansas, this was a Final Four team. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But then I also saw people after last night's loss to Arizona say this team would be lucky to win 2 more conference games. I don't believe that either. Yeah. I think you can be somewhere in the middle. And if your expectation is to not lose and to not have nights where it just doesn't click in this conference, you're going to set yourself up for some miserable nights watching hoops, because it's going to happen in this league.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I kind of had a gut feeling going into that game last night that it wasn't going to happen. I don't know why. I thought it was time. I mean, they had won 7 in a row. or six or seven in a row.
Yeah, and in fairness, you told me that really early on in the game that you just had that feeling.
Yeah, it wasn't their night, man. And I've played sports in I didn't play at their level, but I played in high school, and I had nights, man, regardless of the sport or days, where it's like nothing. The ball moved. It's like in basketball. I used the example on my live show. The basket looked tiny.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like your opponents are moving 100 miles an hour, and you feel like you're moving 5. I mean, it just for whatever, and sometimes there's no explanation for it. I mean, I remember games when I was in middle school where it's like I kept making mistakes, like mistakes I hadn't made all year. And I couldn't, and I was like, what's wrong with me? It's like and it just gets in your head, and then it spirals, right? And that can catch on. And I've had nights where the entire team did that. I mean, I think anybody who's played sports has experienced that at some point. You know, it's just, it is what it is.
It was one of those nights where everything was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
For West Virginia had to work hard for everything, and it seemed that everything kind of came pretty easy for Arizona. Just one of those nights, man.
Yeah, and you add in, you know, they only had 7 guys available to play any significant minutes. They, you know, they're playing a gauntlet of a schedule with very little break. They, you know, they've had to do a lot of traveling. It just, you know, we're having a snowstorm. I'm sure that probably didn't help things. And I know that's not an excuse because the other team's dealing with it too, but you get my point. It just adds up over time. All the different things, you know, the crowd wasn't very good. So that the crowd couldn't help them last night because people were snowed in and couldn't get to the game. So it just wasn't, it's like there was just so many things adding up that you just like, you know what, at some point this team's going to lose a game. Like they cannot keep, because every time they'd win a game, you'd be like, how in the world do they keep winning these games with all these injuries? They can't keep doing that forever. It's just not, it would be illogical for them to keep winning games with all this adversity hitting them in the face.
Yeah. But I do think that at some point, I think injuries are going to catch up to them a little bit. They have to.
They will for sure.
You know, it's extremely difficult to get, and I understand why, but it's extremely difficult to get any information out of the staff in regards to availability. And so until we hear otherwise, Couz, I think we have to assume you're probably not going to see Tucker DeVries again. Until we hear otherwise, I'm going to believe that Jaden Stone is probably not going to suit up this season. Amani Hansberry has been limited at times. He's battled his own injury, and if I recall correctly, he kind of had a little bit of an issue late last night. KJ Tanner missed the game. Is that a one-game thing? Is that going to prolong into 2 or 3 weeks? Again, we have no clue, and I'm not been negative about this, but we're just not getting the updates to kind of keep us in the loop. You start running through some players here, you're a one rolled ankle away from being a serious problem from a Javon Small or an O'Connie or somebody. Mm-hmm. You're stretched so thin right now. You can't even take somebody to have a stomach bug. I mean, so I think my biggest concern right now is, as crazy as it sounds, not the schedule, because I actually look at that as opportunity. Mm-hmm. In terms of their NCAA tournament chances, and maybe we can talk about that. But my biggest concern is the health of this basketball team, and how long can you go stretched as thin as you are?
Yeah, I agree. It's my biggest concern too, because I think that, and we'll just dovetail that into the tournament conversation, because I think it ties together, Jonathan. And real quick before I get there, I want to apologize. I've been looking at my phone a lot, but I keep getting these hints that we're going to see more football commits here soon. So I keep trying to check to see if news is breaking. But as far back to the basketball, if the injury bug if they don't get some relief from that, you know, if they don't get Stone back, or or if Hansberry and Tenor don't come back, right, or they don't get back to 100% soon. Like you said, one rolled ankle, one flu, and we all know at least once a year, at least when Huggins was here, there would be at least one game a year where almost half the team would have the flu. It happened almost every year, and so that hasn't happened yet. It's just, but if that happens and it starts to snowball, then I'm going to be extremely concerned. Then I'll say they might be in trouble. But right now, I agree with you. I don't think they're in trouble. I don't think we should overreact to one game. I do still think this is an NCAA tournament team. I'm like you. I don't think they're a Final Four team. I don't think they're going to compete for a national championship. But can they get into the tournament and win one or two games? Absolutely, I think they can. I think if you can go on the road and beat Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse, and you can beat Gonzaga, and you can beat an Arizona team who has shown they do have a lot of talent, and you can beat a good Georgetown team. Georgetown's good too. I don't think they've lost a game since they played us. If you can win those games, you can compete with anybody, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you're playing your A game and if you're healthy and if things are clicking for you. But the problem is the health part and things are clicking. And back to the game, I mean, you were talking about things being a struggle. I mean, West Virginia is just, I think fatigue had to be a factor because they didn't have the bounce they normally have. They weren't moving well laterally and getting, rotating well. They weren't getting every single show I've done on this team almost, I've talked about how good they do at getting back on defense. They were one of the top transition defense teams in the country going into that game. And they did not get back on defense. Several times in that game, they did not get back on defense and stop transition baskets. And that's just uncharacteristic. They were doing a lot of uncharacteristic things, but I think it all ties in. I think fatigue was part of it. I think frustration might be part of it. They know their teammates keep getting hurt. That's got to weigh on you a little bit, I would think.
It does. And I also think it's in direct correlation with having a bad shooting night.
Yep.
That transition defense. Yep. We were watching the game last night and noticed that transition defense was directly correlated because so many missed outside shots led to long rebounds. And to Arizona's credit, they were able to get that ball and push it up the floor pretty quick. And when you're tired and fatigued, you're not able to catch back up. You're even more behind the 8 ball. And so, fatigue definitely played a factor. I think you maybe talk to me off air about how they're going to get a day off. They're going to get rest. But it's not going to get any easier. This Big 12, I mean, you're going to go to Colorado, who's had a good year, who I believe right now is actually playing. They've got a good season going, and
they're 9-4 right now, so they're not.
They lost to UCF. Lost to UCF by 1, 75-74. They were winning earlier. So I wanted to check that.
They beat UConn. They got a bigger win on their resume than West Virginia does. They beat UConn earlier in the year. When they were the number 2 team in the country. So,
and that's not an easy place to go. It's a long travel for this team. Yep. Altitude's a little bit of an issue. But I talked about this earlier. It's opportunities, right? I mean, if you can go on to Colorado, who's got resume, you've got Iowa State. You've got some other schools in this conference that are going to be Cincinnati's a good team. You have opportunities to earn. So you're sitting at 11 wins. And while you would love to get to 20, you almost have to feel pretty good if you can get to that 17, 18 win range with the resume that you already have, with the resume that you're able to build on. I mean, if you can get another 5 to 7 wins, and I'm not saying it's easy by no means.
Right.
That's on the minimum level. If you can get another 5 wins, 7 wins, 6 wins in this conference, odds are you're going to beat some pretty darn good basketball teams, right, to get to there. So you're going to build on an already impressive resume. So I still think the NCAA tournament is in reach for this team. But I'll tell you what I told some people today on X. If I'd have told you before the season tipped, 14 games in, this team was going to be 11-3, would you take that?
Absolutely, I would.
I would. And so that's not even kind of talking about how So yeah, feel pretty good about this team regardless of how it stands.
Agreed. That's why last night I didn't get – look, was I disappointed? Yeah, I was disappointed, but I didn't get frustrated. I didn't get mad because, like, first of all, like I told you, I kind of saw it come. I didn't see him getting beat that bad, but I did have a feeling it was going to happen. And it's just college basketball, man. Teams don't usually reel off 7, 8, 9 games in a row. It's very rare for that to happen, and they were kind of due, for lack of a better term. Now I hate that it happened at home. I'd rather it happen on the road, but still, I mean, you've got that win at Kansas to kind of make up for it, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at the resume, so I don't think it hurt them all that much. I really don't think it hurt them too much, because I think number one, I think Arizona's going to keep winning a lot of games, and I think when we get to the end of the year, Arizona's going to be back fairly. They're going to be ranked again pretty soon, in my opinion.
Yep, they are. And again, I said earlier, in this conference, you're going to have teams. West Virginia, it ended up becoming a little bit closer, but West Virginia flat out manhandled Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State beat a pretty good Kansas State team last night. Mm-hmm. So every night's going to be something. We know going into each game, it's a roller coaster.
Yep.
And sometimes you're going to be on the top, sometimes you're going to be on the bottom. But I don't think the sky's falling with this team.
Yep, absolutely, it's not.
And I'll tell you one reason why too. The main reason why I don't think Coach DeVries is going to allow it.
That's you took the words right out of my mouth.
I mean, I mean, they've played 14 games, but it's not taking me 14 games to buy in. He's not going to allow it, and I'm not going to say we won't see another performance like we did last night, but I'll be shocked if we see one relatively soon. So
yeah, I saw there are already articles being written and people posting on social media about should he get a contract extension already. 14 games into his tenure.
When didn't Tommy Lloyd, Arizona's coach, make that comment?
Yeah,
it kind of unprompted, right? I didn't hear it, but like I saw on social media, I think it was pretty much unprompted. Said he'd go ahead and give it to him.
Yeah, he said if I was his agent, I would be getting one right now, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but I didn't hear it either. I was just going by what I read on X, but yeah, and I think somebody in the West Virginia media today wrote an article about it, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and see who it was. I just kind of saw the headline.
The good thing for West Virginia is he doesn't seem to be a job hunter. Mm-mm. He seems to be extremely selective. He was at Drake. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but it's fun. He was a lot of success for a long time at Drake. He had multiple opportunities to leave. Yep. He was very selective in where he wants to be. He likes that small town college town atmosphere. He's not just somebody that's going to jump at any other opportunity. Now, what he is going to do is probably demand a pay raise or get a pay raise.
Yeah.
But the job he's done in such a short period of time is remarkable.
Agreed. And fans were already worried about losing him already. Like I see fans on social media like, man, we're not going to be hold on to this guy. He's too good. But like you said, he does seem to be loyal. And he was an assistant at Creighton for forever. I forget when I saw that graphic the other night, I was like, wow, I didn't realize he was at Creighton that long. Like I'm sure he probably had opportunities to leave and become a head coach somewhere at some point, but he didn't want to leave he's the type that's not going to leave for just any job. Yeah. He wants it to be the right job, which he said that in his opening press conference. But and of course, a lot of coaches say that. But I think you can kind of look at his career and he's lived it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, he's not going to be. Everybody wants more money, but I don't think money's what drives him.
No. He was extremely successful at Drake, and could have left easily for an opportunity.
Yeah.
But thank goodness he's here, and hopefully it's just it stinks to have that. It's funny, right? Because it stinks to have that coach who's winning so much that you're scared to death somebody's going to take him. But you certainly don't want to have the coach that can't win anything and nobody wants him.
Yep. Well, that's what I've heard comments before. It may have been during the Zach Alley stuff. I've heard it multiple times, but the most recent one I think was during. They were like, "Well, if he does good, he's just going to leave in 2 years." I'm like, well, good. That means we had 2 good seasons.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. What would you rather do? 6 years of what we just went through?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Dana Holgerson because Dana Holgerson, he used to lose coaches. If you remember, he would have coaches leave every year to go somewhere else. And he had some good coaches on his staff. If you look back at the staff he had, most of those guys have moved on to better jobs, or a lot of them. But he would always say, if you've got coaches that are leaving for other jobs, it means you're doing something right.
Yep.
It means you're hiring the right people.
Yep.
And you're, helping them be successful to where they get recognized, right? It's, a coach's job is to do more than just coach the players. You're also, to a degree, coaching your assistant coaches. And it's just a cycle, man. And look, we're not, I love West Virginia. I'm obviously a huge fan, but we're not a program like Ohio State or somebody that we can't pay our coaches $10 million a year. So we're probably going to lose coaches when they win a lot. It is what it is.
I'd rather be 11-3 with the resume and every blue blood in America wanting Darian DeVries versus 3-11 and people laughing at you that you made the wrong hire.
Absolutely. Well said, brother. Well said. All right, Jonathan, real quick, man, before we call it a night, let everybody know where to find your work.
Yeah, I'm on X at Jonathan K. Martin, JONATHAN K. Martin, in case you're listening and not watching. I've always say it's pretty much a one-stop shop. It's all right there on social media. So a lot of links to this show and your channel and a lot of West Virginia Big 12 type stuff. So come enjoy the fun.
Yep. And you can find me at Couz 206 at Couz, COUZ 206. Also, I need to start advertising this more, but my Hoops from the Hills basketball channel, you can find me the Twitter account for that at Hoops_Heels 304. It's at Hoops_Heels 304. Also, come check out the Hoops from the Hills YouTube channel. Check out Couz's Corner. Subscribe, like, do all the things that YouTubers like you to do. And if you're listening to this on podcast platforms, please leave us a 5-star review. That really helps us. We would really appreciate it. And be sure to check out Jonathan's work and go subscribe to him over on X. He puts out a lot of content. But we really appreciate you guys tuning in for another week of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show. We look forward to being with you again next week. And until next time, we're out. Let's go Mountaineers.